Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. As promised in our daily financial news this morning, we had an extra special guest. We have somebody that's coming on that's going to actually give us two interviews or two discussion points. Let's welcome Mike Swan or Swanny to the show. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, Michael. Hi, Zub. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. We're going to go by Swanny and Zuber so we don't confuse each other. Is that
Zuber,
cool?
yeah. That sounds good to me.
There you go. Well, hey, Swanny, what we're going to do in this, we're actually going to give the audience two episodes. This first one is going to be kind of the introduction to Swanny, right? I highlighted or touched on this morning that you are a teacher, right? It was your job, it was your passion. And, I think most people realize teachers don't make a lot of money. I would say they are greatly underpaid. But you got into real estate, you built up a portfolio that ultimately ends in financial freedom, all on a teacher's salary. So I want our first episode to kind of get rid of the myth that you need a lot of money to do this. It just takes focus, execution, consistency. And then in our second episode, just to tease it here, we're going to talk about what Swanny's doing now, because Swanny's doing some big things, and we're gonna highlight those things. But let's go back to the beginning, okay?
Sounds good. Sounds good. So in 2011, I was, I teach at a parochial school, at a Catholic school, where with a master's of education, with 8 years of education, we did not make that much money. The most I ever made 1 year, school year, with a master's of education, 8 years of education, including the credential, was 50,000 gross before taxes in California, with 13% state income taxes.
Wow.
And then I was also teaching at Miramar College, community college here in San Diego, teaching reading and study skills to the entry-level college students from 42 years old to 52 years old. So I was working about 60 hours a week. And I had a perceived economic catastrophe. I thought I was going to lose $12,000 of that money in a 1 year period. And so I learned at that time that my economic ladder was leaning against the wrong building, the Catholic diocese, the state, for my financial freedom. And so I got together with me, my wife, my mom, my dad, a little real estate agent in Mira Mesa in San Diego, California. And we just started to buy little condos in a little community called Santee and Lakeside, in the San Diego area. We were buying little 1 bedroom, 1 baths, 2 bedroom, 1 baths for about $90,000 to $125,000. And we were buying the 3 bedroom, 2 baths in 2011, 2012 for $125,000 to $150,000 in a nice blue collar, hardworking community in Santee and Lakeside here in the San Diego area.
Wow.
And so we were cash flowing anywhere, and I was managing those myself also while I was working 60 hours a week, grading everything else. I was managing those, doing open houses on the evenings when I wasn't teaching at Miramar College, on the weekends. My wife was helping me clean all those out, get started at, if somebody would call me, I'd go and, fixed our garbage disposal. But then eventually I realized, I got to hire somebody at $50 an hour to do the little maintenance stuff for the 10 condos. So we had 10 condos in a 2-year period. And I sold all those IRAs, those stupid IRAs, paid the 10% stupid penalty for investing in them in the first point. I refinanced my house in Mira Mesa, went all in on each of these 25% down payments on these condos. We pooled my money together with my parents and my wife. We put all our money together and we started to invest in these condos. And it was pretty good. We had 50,000 cash flow coming in after 2 years. It was going, really well. But we've been in San Diego since, 1978, and we've seen this rodeo before. So my house in Mira Mesa went from like 600,000 down to 270,000 in the last crash. Yeah. So we've already seen this this happen before, and I started to go to workshops, seminars, just started to figure out, what do people do? What do the Trumps of the world do with all this equity stuck in the properties? not really getting any kind of return. So, we had 1.6 million in equity on a $250,000 investment in a 3-year period. So I told my parents and my wife and myself, when these things double, we have to sell. We have to get out of these things. And then I learned about, what do people do? They either refinance and take money out, or they do something called a 1031 exchange, which I found very intriguing, since I already had some connections in Northeast Ohio, and we were starting to take all the cash flow and buy little single family in a place called Euclid, Ohio.
Okay.
We bought like 8 of those with the cash that we were hoarding from the condos. And we bought 8 little single family over there for like 30,000 a unit, with rents about, $700, $800 a unit on little, half duplexes, single family in Euclid, Ohio. Yeah. And so we're just hoarding that cash and getting that cash flow. And that was going pretty well too. But then we decided, hey, I'm learning about this 1031 exchange, that I could trade in a condo for an apartment complex that the condo was giving me 5,000 cash per year, giving us 5,000 cash flow per year, split between 2 families.
Sure.
But when we 1031 exchange that for an apartment complex, right out of the gate, you're getting like $24,000 a year cash flow. And then I found out that, the apartment complexes are not valued on comparative values. It's valued on NOI, that I can increase the value of this complex without being at the mercy of comps. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we went with that.
Wow. There's so much there I want to impact in this first episode. So I want to go back to when you started that 2011 timeframe. I always like to talk about the first deal, if you don't mind. So the other thing I think we should talk about is what sparked this, right? The little bit of research I did, thank you for sending me all of this, is you had a moment of fear that there might be some job cuts, right? That there might be some.
Yes. What I found what most people do is they have some kind of economic catastrophe where they think they're going to have a loss. And I was the breadwinner. My wife is special education aide. She makes like $20,000 a year in the public schools. And so, we really never made that much per year with this mortgage and everything in Mira Mesa. So I had a perceived economic catastrophe, and I decided that I was going to not rely on the Catholic diocese anymore and rely on the government for my financial freedom, my parents' financial freedom, for my financial freedom, my wife's financial freedom, and so I find that most people do have some kind of
there's some kind of like spark
pushing them.
That fear, right? That thing that happens in life at different points. I agree with you entirely.
I had a 10-year period where those IRAs were, the kids nowadays and everybody are like, whoa, this rodeo is going to go on forever with the stock market and everything else. But I had a 10-year period, no joke, that 10 years where I wasn't making that much money. I was putting $6,000 a year in those IRAs, and it was the same value.
It never moved. Yeah.
And 10 years later, even though I did the small cap, mid cap, large cap, international, I wasn't making any money. So I was like, we're taught to get a good job, make a lot of money, invest in your 401k IRA, and everything's going to be okay. But I had no money after I sold all those. I had no money in the stock market anymore. Yeah, and I had control.
Same thing. Same deal. I got my economic catastrophe, if you will, is I was a very successful day trader until I wasn't. Right.
Yeah.
I took 7 and basically made it 200, and then 200 turned to 40. And I'm like, well, that hurt. That was stupid. Right. That was kind of my story that got me to real estate. So let's talk about.
Luckily mine did not happen, but the catastrophe didn't happen, but it was perceived.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that to be dependent on them. So, and so should we go back to the first deal?
Yeah, let's go to the first deal. I always like talking about the first one. So it's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath.
So the first deal, I live in Mira Mesa in San Diego. And so I have a residential agent at RC Realty, Scott Chambliss and Brooke Chambliss. I went to high school with Scott, and I would just keep going by their office in 2009 and saying, is this a good time to buy rental properties? I'd like to, get a rental. No, you can't cash flow. Yeah. You'd have to put like 50% down to really cash flow. Not a good time. 2010, I asked them again, no, not a good time. And then 2011, he said, oh, this is the best time I've seen since the 70s that you can actually cash flow on a property. So I said, okay, what do you got? And so he had a little, 1 bedroom, 1 bath for like $135,000 that would cash flow about $350 a month. It would be split between my parents. And so we bit the bullet and we went in there and we got the first little property. These were all like back then foreclosures, REOs, short sales, everything in 2011, 2012.
I remember fondly.
And people were really, people were really scared. Family, friends are like, this is way too risky. Why would you sell your IRAs? Why would you refinance your house to do this one condo at a time? And so everybody except for the real estate agent was like, the real estate's never going to come back. Why are you doing this? It's so low. And I said, because it's so low and that I can cash flow on each of these. And so we just took that little 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and we went in there, cleaned it up. It wasn't too bad. 2nd floor condo, I think it was about 700 square feet.
Yeah.
And it did well. We cleaned it up ourselves. It really didn't have much rehab that we had to do to it. And then I rented it out myself. And luckily I had the residential agent at RC Realty. They have a management division too. And so I said, you're going to get every one of our deals here on the commission side. So if you could help me with like leasing papers and things like that, and checking out the tenants, credit checks and things like that. So I really didn't use their management for managing the properties. I just used it as as to get started and figure out how I'm going to do this properly. Now, since I had this residential agent, I had access to the lock boxes for all these properties in Santee, Lakeside, everywhere. They give me the code. So this is where it gets a little bit hairy. So what I would do is I would go in there and I would look at the place, start negotiating on the place. I would take the key, I'd make a copy of the key, and I would, because these lenders, they wanted you to have leases on these properties kind of when you were going through buying these properties. So I was showing them, I was already renting them out even before I bought the property. And they were all short sales, REOs and everything else. So I had the things rented out with a lease. And so the lender's like, whoa, okay. So they were lending based on how much money was coming and everything else. And I was very amped because this was life savings, my parents, everything. And so I was doing, at that time, I was doing Craigslist ads. So I would do, that was really big in 2011, 2012. So every 2 hours I would press a button and it would go to the top. So I'd have a different ad. I'd have one ad that say, are you a little country? Or I'd have another ad that says classy, to meet a different demographic. And so every 2 hours I would press a button and it would go to the top. And then again saying, you can't do that. That's like spamming. You can't do it. Well, I'm doing it. I'm pressing the button every 2 hours. It's just a renew button.
Right.
And so we had all those things rented out. I was working 60 hours a week, so I didn't want to waste my time. So I would have an open house on Craigslist, 1 to 3 at this time, bam, 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 bam. We'd fill these things up in a heartbeat, even during the where all these properties are government repos, everything else. Only one owner caught me, and he's like, "How are you renting this out before you even signed with me?" And I said, "Oh, I was just testing the market to see if I could get the rents that I wanted to be able to do so. I'll take it down, that kind of thing." But so that's how I did it. With the Craigslist ads, that makes sense. I never had like a 2-week period without any of my units rented out for 3 years.
Amazing. One thing I know, again, I was very active in 2010, 11, 12. Channel knows I was buying everything I could. But one thing I saw in HOAs, and I'm not sure if you experienced this, is some HOAs became what was called busted HOAs. Where a lot of we're paying. And
the HOA fees was always problematic. People like, don't buy condos. Why would you buy condos? Well, if I buy a house in Mira Mesa or I buy a house in Santee or Lakeside, I got to put a lot more down. I wasn't really cash flowing that much. I found the condos and the HOA fees, believe it or not, I had one HOA fee go from $400 and some down to like $200 over the course of my ownership.
Okay.
Because again, they were all government repos, short sales, everything else. And so when it started to turn around,
Mm-hmm.
then those HOA fees became funded again.
Exactly.
And I did have some that went down.
Oh,
So,
there you go.
but again, I was
Okay.
doing it based on, it didn't really matter. I was based on the HOA fees anyway, my numbers.
Yeah,
So
but
if it was,
you never got caught with one. You never got caught with a special assessment or any of those things. Like, hey, we
it
need.
was only a 3-year period. I owned those condos for a 3-year period, and I
Gotcha.
1031 exchanged and got
Out.
out. And so, because they doubled in value. They doubled in
go.
value in a 3-year period.
Okay.
And so we did the 1031 exchanges. That was another thing weighing on the mind, is that you don't know what can happen with HOA fees. Instead of refinancing, we decided the 1031 exchanges, and that was another reason in the back of my mind that, it's about time we get out of these and 1031 exchange to apartment.
Very cool. So you go from having 0 to having 10 inside a 2 or 3 year period.
Mm-hmm.
Were they just all traditional financing, 20, 25% down?
Yeah, 20, 25% down. So I would invest 20,000. My parents would invest 20,000. Pool our money. We would fix them up. We would do whatever needed. 5,000.
Okay.
That's what I'll fix up and everything on these little 90,000 to 125 or 125 to 150 condos. And so that was, really wasn't that much money. Cause like I said, if I did the IRA, I would just take out like $30,000. If I had to put 20,000, I'd take out 30,000 to pay the stupid penalty and everything else, taxes. So I'd take out 30,000 instead.
Yeah.
And really, and then people say, "Oh, that's too risky." And I'm like, "Well, are you at? This is in the stock market. Do you have any control of the stock market at all?" No. And they said, like you said, you were doing day trading. They said, they said, "No, I don't." I said, "Can you, if Apple decides to change something, are you allowed to call them up and say, I don't like what you're doing. Can you change the way you do it? Because I invest in your stock."
Yeah, no.
But I can do this. I can do this for the apartment complexes. I have the right to raise the rents. I have the right to do what I want to be able to increase the money coming in.
Okay. So let me see if I get the timeline right. So you jump in 2011, between 2011, 2013, 14, you get 10 condos.
2011, 2012, we had 10 condos.
Oh, wow. Damn. 24 months.
In a 2-year period. And we did those little, portfolio loans.
Sure.
Remember, it was me, my wife, my mom, and dad. So when you combine finances together, you're a lot stronger to be able to qualify for these loans. Yeah.
Very cool. And really the source of your down payment again was your IRA, right? You were taking this out, paying the penalty.
And I refinanced. I refinanced my house, got like 100,000 for down payments for that too.
There you go.
Because it was low interest, 4% interest to be able to.
I took money from everywhere. I everywhere I could. I even got a loan on my paid off car. I mean, one of my cars, I got a loan and bought a house cash. I mean, it was. You
bootstrapped everything as much as possible. You went all in. Also, but I was also very frugal. I never had, car payments. I never had, whatever. So my son would call it cheap. But I would call it frugal.
Me too.
We had like old motor home. We go places and stay at the RV parks and things like that.
Live below
he would call it cheap.
Yeah.
I would call it. And we had a great time, and kids. Camping and everything else, they love that stuff. So it's not, you know what I mean, though.
Oh yeah, I get it.
We always had the second PlayStation, not the first PlayStation.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, we were always behind a PlayStation. But come on. I mean, if you think about it, I coached all the hockey teams and didn't have to pay for his hockey because I was the head coach of his hockey teams. Everything, and as he said, cheap. I was frugal, and he still got a great life and everything else.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
So you get to the end of the period, you're sitting on $1.6 million. It's amazing how fast properties can double, right?
Yes,
right? Especially in Cali, especially in Southern California, right?
Yeah, but people said that you're stupid. Real estate will never come back. And then when I sold it, the same thing. What? It could go up another 25%.
Yes, exactly.
And why would you sell now? I said, because it's high, and because I can trade in a condo for 5,000 cash flow for an apartment complex. I don't make that much money. I don't want to work 3 jobs. I don't want to do that.
I'm done with that.
So I don't want to do that. And so that afforded me to be able to stop teaching at Miramar College, reading and study skills at 52 years old. You know, I was 52 years old because I was 1031 exchanging those and getting more cash flow. So I didn't have to do the adjunct professor job anymore at Miramar College. And now, fast forward now, you know, I'm financially free and retire.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Our story is very similar because I remember for me, I actually started in 02, right? I started in 02, actually spoke at that first Bigger Pockets event in 2007, I think in Denver with Josh Dorkin in the lab.
Josh.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, it was fun. I did that while working full time, like 68 hours a week. I stopped by Denver on the way home. It was a blast.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember selling or 1031ing my first house, right? I bought it for 100. It rented for 1100, right? The magic 1% rule. Then like 2 years later, right? I always give the address. You can go to Zillow and look it up, right? It's 18 Norris Drive East. So go look it up.
You still remember, yeah?
Of course. You always remember the first one. I'd have no idea after that, but I got the first one. But we sell it at 264, right?
Yeah.
Like in a 2-year period. And then
yes,
the market crashes. It goes all the way to 75.
Yeah.
Right. But what did I do at the peak? We got out. We moved into apartment buildings. That first house, it was cash flowing actually it was negative cash flow because what I did, buy it for 100, sell for 2, or buy it for 100. It makes about $200 a month. 2 years later, or maybe a year and a half, I do a cash out refi. I'm a complete moron. I'm a complete idiot. The bank says, how much do you want? I'm like, how much can I get?
Yeah. What's the max I can get?
Yeah. What? I didn't know it. I didn't know anything about math. So they cut me a big check and then I get my mortgage payment and I'm like, shit, this is bigger than my rent. I'm now negative. Bad idea. Don't do that, people. That's very, very bad.
Yeah, that was one of my early rules was it must cash flow.
Yeah.
It can't lose money.
Absolutely.
And we don't have to get financially free slowly like the IRAs and 401ks. It doesn't have to be a slow game to be able to do so. And so those were kind of my 3 rules. Was it can't lose money. It must cash flow, and I think we can do this quicker than what most people do with these traditional IRAs, 401ks.
Yeah. So the big jump, right? So now 3 years after we buy that first one, I sell it. It was negative. Let's call it negative $200 cash flow. So it means I had to go work 8 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours to pay for this flipping thing, which just annoyed me every month.
Yes.
And then I flip it into a real small. It was just a 5-unit was our first one. And suddenly my cash flow goes up to $1,500. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Some is good, more is better, right? So we went from 8 to 80 in about a year and a half, no new money, and cash flow just explodes.
Yes.
So do you remember your first 1031? What was that like?
Yeah, the first 1031 exchange that we did, we were taking, like I said, those condos that were making, 50,000 cash flow, 25,000 per turn. So we were hoarding that money. So I had a colleague that was from Euclid, Ohio. So we started to buy a little single family with that cash.
Yeah.
And then we said, well, maybe that little property manager can handle 8-unit or a 10-unit apartment complex. And that was problematic. You really do need an apartment complex property manager because it's a whole different ball game from everything from water savings to everything you can think of. They don't make that transition very well. Yeah. And so my first was, I remember, was $100,000 we cleared from the condo, put that into a 420,000 10-unit apartment complex in Cleveland Heights, Ohio.
Nice.
The brokers and everything lie, the owners lie. And so the first 2 were not very good. Luckily, we had 10 of them that doubled in value. So we started to follow David Lindahl's Multifamily Millions.
Oh yeah, I've read that.
I read the book, and it's like a high-level book, and really, the first 2 I did not follow that. I wanted to do a yield play, like we were talking about, trading in 5,000 cash flow for this much cash flow as a yield play. But that's kind of a loser if you just keep going after yield on apartment complexes. Okay. You need to find some value add because these things, as you've spoken with other guests, these things are on short-term debt, anywhere from 5+5 loans, little local banks, or when you get bigger, it's non-recourse. You can get up to 10 years
Absolutely.
Fixed, but you have to have some upside. You can't just buy something because you think it's going to go from that 5,000 cash flow to this cash flow. You need to have upside. And so I learned this and went through workshops and everything else. And so those were the first two. We did two 1031 exchanges, and like 2.5 years later, we decided to sell those two because the other ones were doing so well following David Lindahl's multifamily millions repositioning value strategy.
Nice.
Just by the book and
it's all there.
And finding the right brokers and the people that really can see past their face to do more deals with you and more deals instead of just a sucker from California, or a sucker from Washington, or a sucker from New York or New Jersey or Hawaii, because they're even on bigger pockets. They are targeting people from those areas that have lower cap rates, and they're targeting them. And if it was a good deal, aren't there people there in your state that would want that deal?
There's a lot of local investors that will scoop up the diamonds, folks. I hate it when a Cali investor gets almost ego like there's something special and they've never been there, right? If you're going to be investing in a market that you've never been to, you're going to find gold. Not great.
You're going to make some mistakes along the way. And you got to know when, in that song, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. And so on those two properties that, I was doing basically a charity case for my property manager for 2.5 years. Yeah. So I said, forget this. I'm just going to sell these things, get rid of them. So, we took a bath, 400,000 on the first one, and we sold it for 320, and we put like 75,000 the dog over the course of the 2.5 year period. And we had the 100,000 1031 exchange, and we still had to come up with like maybe 20, 30,000 out of pocket just to get rid of it because it was just wasting our time.
It was burning cash.
We could not increase the rents to increase the NOI. We were sold a bill of goods, and we learned our lesson that we don't do that anymore. We only buy things that we know we can increase the rents $200 to $300 a month on each unit, and reduce the expenses because that's how it's valued. That's how we're refinancing these things 4 years now.
Yeah. So we're definitely going to make that a huge topic of video number 2, the value add play and all of that.
Yes.
So to round out video number 1, I'm curious, do you still have a couple of those singles in Ohio? You talked about buying a few singles. Did you?
No. That was all. What happened was, again, people say, oh, don't buy there because you're not going to have appreciation on single family. But we went up 50% in a 3-year period. We bought them at like 30,000 all fixed up, and we sold them for about 45 to 50,000 each, all fixed up, and didn't have to pay much taxes because we didn't own it very long. You don't have to worry about your, it wasn't 1031 exchange money; it was just cash. And so we got out of those to be able to, because it takes money to do what we're doing with these apartment complexes to be able to reposition them. Yeah, we have.
So as we wrap up. If we wrap out episode 1, what year or month do you remember when you finally achieved or recognized financial independence? Do you remember?
Financial independence. This is funny. In April, like around Easter this year, I went into the bank and I said, am I still taking 3,500 from the checking and putting that? Are we still putting that into savings? Because I only make 3,200 take home at my day job. So am I still doing that? And they said, yeah. I said, could you stop that? So I was financial free. A year or 2 ago.
Nice.
And so I retired this year teaching.
Congrats.
I already knew that. I already knew I was going to retire with this COVID stuff and wearing masks, teaching PE, and it was just ridiculous. It was, I'm
out of here.
Ridiculous. Yeah. So I did it for the principal I was there with for 20 years. The same principal and vice principal. And so I just did that one more year for them anyway. And so I kind of, that was just like another hit on the head when I went to the bank and they said, we can stop transferring that from your checking. I said, okay. So I was financial free way before that. I think.
Yeah. You bring in 32 and you take out 3,500. Yeah. You're clearly financially free. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we know we're up to like, I don't know, 20,000 cash flow now at this point. And
That's awesome.
it still is like 10,000 for my parents and 10,000 for me, but that's not where the real money is. And the next segment, we'll talk about where the real money is, where you can really, cash flow is great, but when you can have both and these things, 70% is your refinance or your sell is where you make the real money on these apartment complexes compared to single family.
Exactly. As we wrap up this first episode, what kind of message do you want to tell somebody who's employed? Maybe they have a job fear, maybe they're a teacher and they never make, or maybe they have a job where they never make more than 50K. I think.
Well, the first thing that I tell people, because I was on Bigger Pockets podcast 238 in 2017, and I always leave my phone number, my cell number, so people call me, text me all the time. I'll still do the same thing for you. Cool. And I would tell them, well, you right now you have an income problem. You have an income problem. So, and most of them are in their 20s and 30s that are calling me and talking to me. Sure. And I'll say, okay, what's your second job?
Yeah.
And they'll say, no, I don't have a second job. I said, well, you make 30,000 and you want to invest in real estate. What's your second job?
Exactly.
How old are you? 20 or 30? What's your side hustle? What do you do to be able to get a financial freedom account for you to invest in real estate? Yeah. And sometimes people want something for nothing, instantaneous gratification, diseased, where I don't really have to, I don't want to work. I don't want another job. I don't want to work, but I want, Swanny, why don't you invest in my deals? And I'll say, well, what have you done before? Nothing. I'll say, well, you should probably ask your parents or somebody else, because, you need to have some success before people are going to want to invest in your deals, and you're going to have to make mistakes and learn. And so you don't step on those landmines like I have done learned my lessons to become financially free. And so that's the first thing is they may have an income problem. So they need to find a side hustle. They need to make enough money to get I call it a financial freedom account for real estate on top of their reserves for themselves. If they lose their job, do they have 3 to 6 months reserves for themselves? And then, have your financial freedom account. And if you want to get one little property at a time, you need to have a lot of money. You need to have reserves, because I have had in the last 2.5 years, 3 years, probably had about 20 to 25 people die.
Oh my goodness.
That were in my units, not in the units, but maybe at the hospital or whatever. Yeah. When you get to 200 units, you're going to have, and what do you do when somebody dies? What do you do? Well,
it's hard to collect rent.
You got to find the next of kin. Yeah. You got to evict a dead guy sometimes. Yeah. And and depending on your state, very liberal, whatever state you're in, you're going to have a lot of things. I've had roofs blow off. I've had, just all kinds of things happen. You can never have enough reserves. Yeah. So if you want to get one little single family, that's kind of risky. So you better have 15,000 sitting in the bank in reserves for when Murphy's Law rears its ugly head. It's not if, it's when. It's going to happen. And so that's the advice I give them is you need not just the down payments. You also need reserves. Absolutely. For when Murphy's Law rears its ugly head, because it will. It's not if, it's when. Yeah. Okay. Right? Yeah, no. That's the advice. Lots of education. Only talk to economically to people about economic information from people that have gone down your road before. Exactly. I mean, the road you want to travel. Don't talk to people that say, I had a friend or a family member and they own this house and then they moved to another area, so they rented it out themselves and they tried to do it themselves and it didn't work out. Yeah. And it was bad and that's really, you only want to follow people that have been successful economically in the area you want to go. Nice. I hate to be mean, but I would not follow economic advice from someone that has less than me. Yeah. And some of these financial planners, I don't mean to disparage them. Some of these financial players make 60 to 80,000 a year, and they're telling you how to manage your money. It's crazy. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be bad about it, but you got to follow. I totally agree. People that have gone down the same road.
I totally agree. I mean, the path to financial freedom is pretty well worn. There are lots of paths. Once you pick yours, find somebody who's gone farther than you, right? Don't find your path and then pick somebody over here or over here. That's just wasteful. So Swanny,
Yeah,
you
they
want
tell
to
you it won't work. They tell
Yes.
you it won't work. They're going to tell you it won't work, but they haven't done it before.
Exactly. So you wanted to leave your phone number just in case one of the one rental at a time family wanted to call you?
You can text. We're Pacific Standard Time here, so please don't call after 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, be nice. Be kind.
10 o'clock at night. My wife probably won't like that. And I probably won't answer at that time. But you can text me and you can call me. This is my personal cell number, 858-722-7377. That's 858-722-7377. And our website is S as in Swanny, P as in Pike, my business partner, multifamily.com. SP multifamily.com. And you can see what we're doing.
That is awesome, folks. So pay attention for episode number 2. It's going to be where the real money is made. Thanks, Swanny.
Thank you.